I am Claire Angelle, the founder of Angelle Consulting, which is a boutique consulting company here in Atlanta that focuses on smart cities and urban innovation. And I'm joined today by two distinctive gentlemen. To my immediate left, Larry William is the president and CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia, and TAG for short. And if I'm not mistaken, with 35,000 plus members, this is the largest technology association in the country. And also joined by Doug Hooker, who is the executive director of the Atlanta Regional Commission, which is an organization comprised of a diverse area of stakeholders that from the 10-county region that helps plan the main issues related to the region and providing solutions. And we're here today to talk about how to build an inclusive economy, which is a quite a dense subject to cover in the 20 minutes we have. So I'm going to start by asking you to help frame the conversation and talk about who historically have been those marginalized groups that are not fully integrated to the economy, and what are the type of challenges that they face. Doug, if you want to start.
Sure, thank you, Claire, and it's nice to be here today. Thank you. Of course, I think everybody recognizes that essentially Black and brown people, particularly young men of color, have been left out of the U.S. economy for many decades. But increasingly, we also have groups like rural youth, particularly since the turn of the century as urbanization has accelerated and rural areas have lost population. A lot of those are the young people looking for opportunity. And often those young people don't have the same educational background and preparation for participating in the economy. And then also older dislocated workers who've been in traditional kinds of employment having a hard time being reintegrated into the economy because either they don't have the skills or their skills aren't in the right place to be utilized. And then also I would say we haven't thought about our disabled or differently abled population as well. So a number of different rising populations that we need to think about how we can include them in the economy.
And Larry, maybe if you can tell us a little bit about what are the main challenges that this group faces around the country.
Yeah, well, thank you, Claire. Great to be here with you today. You too, Doug. Thank you, and thanks for all of you for joining us. Doug did a great job of framing up the scope and what we're dealing with. I think the challenges that we have is really that there's, especially in the technology industry in Georgia now, we have a deficit of unemployment. We have about 35,000 open jobs today in the technology sector, and that's a broad range. That's from people that are looking for PhDs all the way up to people that can be technicians and can either be trained through apprenticeships or through technical training. So it's a broad range, and these are great jobs. These are things with career paths where people have a perspective. So I think the challenge is how do we get people upskilled and people into the right skill sets so that they can fill the jobs that are in high demand today. And we've got to think uniquely about how we do it. We can't wait 16 years for someone to come through traditional college. We've got to think about the populations today and new approaches. Apprenticeships is a new approach to the United States. It's just getting some legs back again, training people with basic skills and being able to upskill them in a way that they can fill these jobs as well. And we've got to think a very comprehensive approach to it and think about how we reach all of the populations that Doug mentioned, and the geographic point is a great point as well. And there's certain challenges there that I think we're going to talk about too.
So here in Atlanta, we talk often about how people are moving to Atlanta. We see often in the news how companies are choosing Atlanta to relocate their headquarters and all those beautiful news. But we're also one of the worst cities in the United States for social mobility. So Doug, can you tell us about what challenges we are facing in Atlanta and what government, nonprofit, and also the private sector is doing to address those challenges?
Sure. The idea of trying to build a more inclusive economy and a more inclusive society is a matter of trying to change a lot of systems that have traditional patterns of not providing access or inequitable access. And so a lot of the work that ARC and others are doing are on long-term systems kind of issues, beginning with education. We are one of 4 founding organizations that have partnered with 8 public school districts in the area, along with philanthropy and corporate support, to develop a program called Learn for Life, which is a collective impact approach to improving educational outcomes. It's kind of an all hands on deck to help educate these children, because they're all our children in some respect, right? So there's that, and early on it's showing some positive results, but we got a long way to go with that. There's issues around housing, because you can't be included in an economy if you have no place to live. I mean, it's hard to be part of a vibrant part of an economy. And how do we develop housing affordability, which is increasingly a problem, not only for poorer households, but also for middle income households. It's becoming more of a challenge. And we have a regional housing affordability strategy that we're currently engaged in and will unveil next year. And then there's other kinds of things like workforce development. As Larry said, we can't wait 16 years. We have to think about ways we can upskill people. And our workforce system in this region is extremely fractured historically. And now we have a number of, all the workforce boards, a number of private, philanthropic and against nonprofit interests coming together, try to figure out how we can strengthen and develop a better, more regional focused workforce system that's in, the boundaries are invisible to potential businesses and potential employees, so that wherever they are, wherever their background is, they can get the service they need. So those are some of the things we're working on.
And Larry, technology can be a great enabler, but it can also enhance social disparity. Could you tell us what TAG is doing to address social mobility in Atlanta, and what you see in other technology associations around the country?
Sure. So there are a lot of great things, and so as Doug framed up, there are systemic things that we have to address. We describe those as the large lever. They also tend to be a little bit longer term to implement. And then there's some more tactical things. Some of the things that we're doing with partners like FinTech Atlanta is looking at financial inclusion as well. So it's this line that it costs a lot of money to be poor. Okay, poor people don't have access to credit cards, which is a typical way that we pay now. So technology can enable a lot of prepaid cards and other systems that allow to do it. You know, poor people have to spend more time on public transportation getting to and from wherever they need to go, whether it be a job or to the grocery store or wherever. They tend to stand in lines to pay their power bills or to pay their utility bills. That takes a lot of time that they could be doing. So anything that we can do in using technology to facilitate these types of things, to accelerate that, is going to be where they could be spending them time getting upskilled, getting training, or actually at jobs, are all very important as well. We worked with the state legislature last year and got programs passed that we're actually going to start introducing computer science classes in every public high school in the state. So this access to being able to do that at an early age is going to be very important. It's important for several reasons, the access to it, but also letting people understand that they can do this type of work as well. And then there's some tactical things that we do. We do a lot of coding camps where we target different regions of the state, whether it be inner city or the populations that need it the most, that don't have access to these types of programs. We do a lot of Girls Who Code programs, because a lot of it is people need to be able to see demonstrably, somebody who looks like them. I'm a girl, but I've never seen a woman do this job, and now I'm meeting some, and I see it, and I can do it, and build that confidence, and then they can continue those careers. It's true in a lot of other places as well. And the other part that we're working hard is how do we bridge that rural divide? There is not high-speed internet outside of metropolitan areas. It's true, and it can affect so many of the things that that Doug touched on. One, it can improve access to education, okay? It can improve access to health care. It can improve access to people's ability to either participate in a metropolitan economy remotely or start new businesses of their own, which is exciting, and be entrepreneurs and develop that entrepreneurial spirit. So we're working with partners, we're working on the policy sides, and then we're doing some tactical things as well to get people included.
To your point, it's hard to emulate what you don't know. So great point about that. You just touch upon entrepreneurship. So we often talk about equal access to jobs, but actually the opportunity to create your own company and your own jobs is a big component of an inclusive economy. Can you maybe talk about respective programs you lead yourself or have seen in the region to provide better access to services that help marginalized people build their own company and become entrepreneurs?
Well, I can't say that we personally do. It's not our role in the community. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Is that a hint?
You didn't get the music, but.
All right. Well, I'll just talk loud. I can't say that we personally.
I think it might be on now.
Okay, let's try it again. I can't say that the Atlanta Regional Commission is engaged with entrepreneurship or trying to help people who want to start businesses. That's not our role in community. However, aware of a number of things that are happening in the region, including the City of Atlanta's efforts to promote entrepreneurship among women and their specific initiative on that. The recent opening of the Russell Innovation Center near the West End, or in the West End actually, by Michael and Jerome Russell, taking their legacy company and trying to turn part of it over to helping young students, young people of color to begin to learn the skills of what's necessary to start their own business, led by Jay Bailey. So there are a number of things like that that are happening not only in the city but throughout the region as well that I'm aware of.
Well, I think one of the challenges is just like you can say access to traditional jobs can be a challenge. For entrepreneurs, access to capital is a challenge, and being able to do that. So a lot of good news in a tag. It's about connecting dots. The good news about Atlanta is really recognized as seen as a great place for black entrepreneurs in particular to start up businesses here. And we're starting to see people that are being successful, people like Paul Judge, who have been extremely successful and now are reinvesting in the community here. You know, he's got a business objective here, but he's also got a perspective about how he can look and cast a broader net and looking for those best ideas and those best deals and being able to grow those companies. And the good news is we can grow them right here in Georgia. So fascinating things going on right now.
So we talked about when we were in the media earlier, but the diversity for a long time in Atlanta meant black and white, and it's changing rapidly. Atlanta has the second fastest growing foreign-born population in the country, second to Baltimore. And could you tell us how this is impacting the conversation on inclusion and diversity and building an inclusive economy, because the challenges that the foreign population faces is different historically from marginalized people that have been in Atlanta. So Doc, can you tell us, I know you've done quite a lot of work around how to address this issue around foreign-born population in the region.
Sure, and it's an excellent point. Because our foreign-born population is growing so rapidly here in Atlanta. And often, a lot of those folks come from national backgrounds or ethnic backgrounds where they've not been exposed to, one, what their rights are, and also what their access is to community resources. And because in many cases they come from countries where questioning authority or asking questions isn't always the safe thing to do. They find their security is staying within their own community, only cutting themselves off from what's possible. So the challenge of trying to get representatives in those communities who can talk to those community leaders and their young people and others to help them understand what their rights and their opportunities are, what kind of systems and perspectives are out there to help support them as they begin to think about how they integrate into this new country, into this new economy that they've selected to live in. That's a major challenge that we have to pay attention to. Of course, their language. For many of them, English is a second language, and oftentimes you find the younger generation that may not be adults trying to help the older generation navigate what's possible, because the younger generation understands English and the older generation doesn't understand it as well. So those kinds of things that we have to be sensitive to and aware of. And it's not that they're not interested, it's not that they're willing. Immigrants tend to have a higher rate of starting new businesses, tend to have a lower rate of accessing social services, despite some people's assessments otherwise. But they tend to be very healthy for an economy, but knowing more how they can integrate and access resources to help them get those starts is a critically important part of what we need to do.
Right. And I mean, obviously, government has a big role to play in providing equal access to services and providing services in Spanish, Korean, and other main language spoken in the region. I'll actually take this opportunity to give a shout out to a national organization, nonprofit that is based here in Atlanta called Welcoming America.
Welcome America, I was talking about them, exactly.
And they are helping local government and communities across actually not only the United States but the world. They're a truly global organization in building welcoming and inclusive environment for foreign-born, and they have been a massive success. And I just want to take this opportunity for a little shout out.
That's a good shout out, absolutely.
And it's an important part, because it's such an important part of our community. I mean, if we look at, just, drive up Buford Highway, and some of the most incredible thing, which becomes both, it's a great asset for us. I talk to some of the top chefs in town sometimes, and I say, where do you go to eat when you're not cooking yourself? And they all say Buford Highway. So some of the most unique and incredible culinary experiences you can have there. And obviously it's going right through Gwinnett County. Gwinnett, the largest county in the state of Georgia, is also recognized as one of the most diverse counties from an international and a broad cultural point of view in the nation. So you have a booming economy there that is pulled together by this diverse of cultures, and really continuing to drive it. When I went to Miami to run economic development for Miami-Dade County, Gwinnett County actually did a mission and was talking to us, because Miami-Dade County is a majority minority area. So, and that's an important fact, because that is where America's going. And so the population and the demographics are going to continue to evolve. And so all of the things that we've been talking about that leads up to this, and the importance of education, about inclusiveness, housing, is going to continue. And these are the populations that we need to be able to address. Now, if we think about the West Coast, I lived in Seattle for 10 years. And so you're talking about, the perspective of what diversity means, huge Asian populations, now multi-generational as well. I worked for a governor who was the first Chinese-American governor in the United States, very important. His grandfather was the immigrant and was a houseboy at the governor's mansion. Wow. Right? And you think about, wasn't alive to see him, but those are important things about the evolution of our country. But I think when we're seeing this in Gwinnett County as well, and some of the things that are important, when I look at Miami, Miami is not a melting pot, and I don't think it ever will be. You got to think about Miami as a mosaic, because of the Latin American population, the Caribbean population, people are still very proud of their heritage and their cultures. And we see some of that here, and they tend to build communities. I said I could have, 3 different meals in 3 different countries in one day. You can do that in Buford, on Buford Highway too. These are a very important part about our demographics, where this country is going, and how we start to incorporate them. An important part as we build business and technology contacts is they think, from a business point of view, they think globally from go. You know, it's not an insulated area. So as we expand and think about Georgia as a global hub of innovation and technology, these are important assets for us as they already develop networks and are able to tap back into their home countries of how we can build markets and global connectivity.
Right. So why is this conversation important? What are, I think we have 1.5 minutes left, maybe we'll close on that, but what are some of the, yes, what are some of the direct and indirect benefits of building an inclusive economy, and what does this conversation matter?
A lot of people think that inclusion means it's a zero-sum game. Our research team did a special study in 2015 or in 2016 looking at 2015 economy, and what we were able to determine is if all ethnic groups, age groups were participating in the economy fully in the same relationship as the majority population, our economy would have been 25% higher. It would have added an $85 billion additional to our economic activity in this metro area alone. So inclusion is not a zero-sum game. It's always an additive game, and everybody can benefit from it. So forget the moral side, just the basic economic equation. It says it's the right thing to do.
It's not only the right things to do, it's the smart thing to do. And going back to our foreign-born population, the foreign-born population in this country create jobs at a faster pace than the native population and graduate faster from college. So I think it's important to remind people that is just not a moral obligation, it's in everybody's interest.
Yeah, there's a business motivation for it as well. And it's I love that talking point as you give it, because the converse is true as well. So without them involved, it's the people that are involved in the economy are paying for it.
That's exactly right.
So there's, you know, a lot of motivation for doing it. And then plus with the deficits of jobs that we have, there's that great business opportunity as well. We did an event this year that we've been doing several years around diversity and inclusion, doing awards. We turned up the heat on it this year, called it Converge, think about the convergence of innovation. And we focused on how inclusion drives innovation. So if we think about, we've got great diversity here, but the secret sauce is really how do we create an inclusive culture that brings those people, that diversity of ideas, the diversity of cultures, the diversity of geography to the table, because it's already demonstrated the importance of being able to create that inclusion, and that drives great outcomes for whatever you're trying to do. And there's the music, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for your time, and thank you, Doug and Larry.